Welcome to this reconvened Finance Committee meeting. We have reconvened for the purpose of considering a paper and a set of possible resolutions which were laid on the table yesterday for us to consider now as the last item on this agenda.
Madam Chair, I should probably move apologies from Gary, Kevin, Carmen, Gretchen.
Yeah, because it's 4.
And a seconder?
Yes.
All those in favour?
Aye.
On the contrary? Carried. What was laid on the table yesterday was a series of suggestions of added items into the long-term plan to send off to the next phase. Have we got? Yes.
What's this, a hand?
Kevin moved it, who's no longer here, I think. In which case,
and then it was laid on the table. It wasn't moved.
Okay.
Yeah. It was laid on the table. So, was it moved before? Yes, I'm saying instead of passing it or not passing it, we laid it on the table.
Yeah.
So, firstly, has anyone got some wording around the bottom two, H and I? We can decide whether we will look at them separately, but
I had thought the H was that the chair and CEO work on a workshop with the University of Otago. That was the undertaking we did at the long-term plan hearing, I think. And the third, the I was note the council bring forward the integrated catchment work, which has the effect of adding budget of 200,000 in year 1 and 690 in year 2, and the following years being as our plan.
yes.
Is that right?
That's what you used it.
And then H was that the
Chair and CEO arranged a workshop.
I'm wondering whether we need that as part of the
It was just making sure that they
of the long-term plan considerations.
well, it's just it's a response to a submission. That's why it was in.
I see. Was it to do with a workshop and the MOU that we already have, or?
I think it was.
Do we have an MOU?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we need?
well,
So-
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think when the Chancellor comes and asks to talk to us about that collaboration, then we didn't have time on the day, and that's where we said we'd undertake to have that conversation at another time. That was, we were running out of time.
Yes, I'm wondering if since we have an MOU with a instruction to arrange a workshop, we might be best to.
Can I suggest an alternative path that would be a bit quicker? That we request the chair and chief executive to meet with the University of Otago for the purpose of updating and progressing the existing MOU between the parties, between the parties. Or
Just done it.
is that all right?
MOU for what?
All of it, it's just that we've only just done it. But
Oh, cool, that'd be
it's
great.
fine.
And then make a report back and then we can decide where to go from there.
Okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
It's just,
Is there a specific MOU
Um,
that we're
we've got,
And reporting back to council. So that's the part that will be in action for
yeah, that's right.
or our chief executive. Right, we also are missing the piece at the bottom, which I don't know whether now would be the time to put the total financial effect. Right?
We understand perhaps the first funding with our rates are now weak.
Yes, I'm just, we'll finish this while I'm hearing in my ear for a moment first. Number C doesn't have any financial information.
No, it didn't have any financial.
I mean, we said hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, but it was left here because the idea was that this piece of work would happen, and ideally that will start to form up what needs to be done, and then we can price that up, and it would come back. Anything that came out of it would go back to the planning process. So we left the dollar amounts out of that.
Yeah.
Indicated that the work that things were going to be progressed as noted there.
That C is is two bits. I think we had focused by the end of the day on the second bit. The ORC staff will ensure opportunities
So that
exist.
was actually a
That was
separate resolution,
yeah.
I just added that
Yeah.
in just to sort of,
Yeah.
just merely copy that in, so that was a separate resolution made before this.
Yeah,
So I can take that out, I just like, might want to see it.
no, I think it needs to be as a something, but it's a question of then what did you proposed, I think, Kate, the first half of C.
I think I lost that vote.
Yeah.
That was
This
one
was
of
the
four.
second
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So
That was-
Yeah.
should we take away the first half of C and just
I didn't-
start it
Yeah.
there? And how's that? The point up to where it says where scheme performance reviews are being undertaken.
So that was already
It's
passed.
already decided.
That was all. That's
Ah,
just an
okay.
existing
Yeah.
resolution.
We've got that now.
Yeah,
I
Okay,
still
so
someone would still like to vote on
we-
it, though.
do we want to take it away or do you want to vote on that, Kate?
I think it was,
You've already voted on
Yeah.
it.
On
Just like
that
those
first
ones
half we
see
have
it.
voted on.
Oh,
So I'm
no.
talking about the first half of that.
Okay.
So
So you want me to remove this?
Yeah.
if it's, doesn't have a cost.
No, you haven't agreed to do
But-
that.
Yes, so this, we're back to, if we want this to still be in here, which Kate, you're welcome.
I'm happy to see it, and it's still, yes.
If you want to put it in there, we do need some financials around it.
Perhaps it's staff to report back on the options that we're not going to get done before the end of June, so that's going to have to be the next annual plan.
So
It has need to understand the costs before we commit to it.
that staff report back on options around an independent review.
Yeah.
Of the existing rating basis for, so that, how's that?
Just put with budget.
Right, well, I was going to say, is it,
And funding, options and funding.
and funding options?
I don't know, put my,
By,
Costs rather than funding options.
well,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah,
Okay,
provide costs rather than,
one second.
by Dr. Palmer, September? No?
India.
Right. End of,
The financial year or end of?
no, no, they can't.
End of December. I think you need to cut out the top bit.
Yes, yeah, so the top part before staff,
all
it
of it?
disappears then. Yes. Councillor Wilson, are you happy about that? In the circumstances?
Yes, we can vote for it.
Just to clarity, it is all schemes, is it?
It is all,
That's my question. Is it all
Uh,
schemes? All 8 schemes? My question.
Well, the problem is we've got a consistent funding system,
Yes.
and if you do
Yeah.
one, you break the system.
yes.
Let's get some clarity on the scope. Thank you.
For all, do you want to put all there? Then all. Right, do we, back to the bottom thing is, do we want something at the end that says the totality of these would affect the rates by, notes that the total of these options, because then any less we do will be less than that, so we at least know what parameters if we did less. Would have the effect, well, yeah, lovely. Budgeted rates, or is it?
It's probably budget and rates. There'll be an amount and then there'll be some impact on rates.
It's like 200 for 1 year. and
Yes.
90 for the other.
Yeah,
It's 49 for the bottom of Kevin's,
Yeah, so you want to do the totals?
yeah,
So
for year.
so of these, the total impact is an increase in year 1 of 390,000. Year 2 is 1,030,000. And year 3 is 240,000, over and above what was in the original LTP. And the percentage increases the total rates.
Liz,
Yeah, can we go back, because your
Year
two will
two.
be how much?
1030.
240 in year 2, year 1,
Year three.
390.
Year 3, 240,000.
200. Just leave off the thousands.
Yeah, well,
this, and then the rates, the effect on the rates.
and the
Integrated catchment.
And the total rates increase percentages for the first 3 years will then be 49%.
9%. Well done.
Year 1. No, for the
No,
first
for the
year.
first year.
Year 2,
Year 2 is 18.4%. And year 3 is 8.7%.
and then if we could just change that will to be would,
Would impact the budget, is that what you're saying?
yes.
Would impact the budget.
And then we might get rid of that resolution, we might change it at the end, but. Or just, would.
Would be.
Can I suggest that you actually put total rates in that
Yes.
last one?
It is total rates,
Yeah, well, no,
Shut up.
originally you're talking about
Yeah.
rates for each,
yes.
the incremental increase in your total rates.
Right, we might need to change that last, but if we do something about the earlier ones, because that would,
Okay.
right,
The only other thing to note would be that's for those increases that are there
yes,
above.
yes,
As we said, we're not proposing any change because of living wage to year 1, but we'll need to work through the numbers, but there might be a slight change to those year 2 and 3 percentage numbers.
so these say the total of these options. So that should cover that. Right, do we want to do them one at a time?
So are we going to put that comment down about the living wage impact in years 2?
No, because it isn't about these ones that we're just dealing with now. And that'll just confuse what you have to read to get back to them, I think. Right. So we do them one at a time, and we've asked the questions, I think, about all of these now. So if we just move through on the basis of a mover, a seconder, and people, if we if they want to make have any debate at all about them, knowing that I'm not of a mind to say that just because you've moved it and seconded it, you're the only people who get to speak to it. If we,
Can I ask if Carmen can hear us? Can
Carmen,
she see these?
Well, she's got her
Yeah.
eye down, so I'm assuming.
can you see these, Carmen?
The microphone's off.
Can I just know, I thought you'd actually already
I thought we
agreed
were-
to all
Yeah,
of these.
that's what I think.
You just wanted to do a final check of what the total result was, and particularly in light of the discussion that was being held in the council meeting, to confirm that you were comfortable with the overall rating.
Okay, we voted on putting them all together. We didn't vote on each of them. We agreed that these are the ones we would look at, and we would put them all together and look at them again today. So what we can do in light of that is put them all together, but I think it's probably best to just move through a vote for each of them. And if there's, are there any of these things that people particularly want to say something about?
F and G.
F and G. Okay, any others? Okay, would somebody like to move the ones that aren't
I'll move.
F and G? Right, moved and seconded,
Everything but F and G.
yes. Moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carmen, and against?
Aye.
They're moved there. Right, moving to F. Would somebody like to move F?
Yes, I would.
Right. Right, any debate on F?
Thank you, Chair. I'll oppose that. I would much prefer to see that 40,000 sum transferred to the Eco Fund. And if the Yellow Penguin Trust was to apply there, that's great. I can't see that there is justification for continuing support at any level to the Yellow Penguin Trust when they have very significant reserve cash in their own. But if they want to apply to the Eco Fund, go for it.
Right.
So can I just clarify that, Michael? Are you foreshadowing that if this motion is lost, you would move a motion that ORC contribute an additional $40,000 per annum to them?
Correct.
Or are you asking that this be amended to do that?
It can't be amended. It's not amended. It's a negative.
Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I'm actually comfortable with what's actually proposed there. To me, it's a transition. We were doing 75 and now we're doing half of 75 in a really important area of the coast, and it's quite specific. You know, I mean, I respect what Councillor Beck has said, but you know, they may or may not be. This is 3 years, 40 grand. It's a transition to reality. But at the end of this, we might actually pay by anything. We're not doing a lot on the coast. We have had a number of submissions reaffirming how important this work is to not only yellow-eyed penguins, but an understanding of the whole coastal ecology.
Right, any other debate? Councillor Wilson.
I'm going to vote against it, but I think if we put this 40,000, if we don't put it into the Eco Fund, into bringing our coastal plan forward, that would have been a smarter move to get a resolution for the yellow-eyed penguins. This is not targeted, not strategic, and I don't actually think we can afford it.
I'd just like to say that I think Michael's right. I really like the idea of contributing the extra 40,000 into the Eco Fund and then coming to us with a specific project that then is merit-based. At the moment, we've opened a sort of generic funding alternative, and I don't think there's an awful lot of accountability to that either, at least through the Eco Fund in this process.
Right, if we We've had that moved and seconded. All those in favour?
I'd like to also say on that, Councillor Calvert, please.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
That's all right. I also support what Councillor Deaker says too, and I'd just like to support that as well. Thank you.
So are we voting on the motion?
We're
there?
voting
Just
on the motion that's there.
But there's a foreshadowed motion.
Yes. So all those in favour?
Aye.
All, yes, let's have a division.
Councillor Calvert,
No.
Councillor Deaker,
No,
Councillor Forbes,
Aye.
Councillor Hobbs,
Aye.
Councillor Hope,
No.
Councillor Laws,
No.
Councillor Markham. Oh, sorry. Councillor Mann,
Aye.
Councillor Scott,
Aye.
Councillor Wilson,
No.
fails 4-2.
Right. Councillor Deaker, I hear you've got a motion that you would like to move.
Madam Chair, I move, sorry, that the $40,000 per annum initially intended for the Allied Penguin Trust be added to the Eco Fund.
No, it wasn't ever initially, Michael, so you don't need to move that. You just need to say that
Would you like to say
$40,000
that?
per annum
Yeah.
be added to the Eco Fund.
Okay,
Yeah.
if that makes it simple. I'm just trying to be painfully clear, I guess, but I'll move the $40,000 be transferred to the Eco Fund.
Per annum. That's not quite right, is it?
Oh, is that for 3 years or 1 year?
It was 3 for the
Yes.
For
last
3 years?
motion.
Yeah, so for 3 years, Mike.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so, sorry, it shouldn't it say that $40,000 per annum will be added to, yeah.
And should it have on it, because that's what I thought I heard the discussion say, and the Yellow-Eyed Penguin Trust would be invited to apply to the Eco Fund.
Uh,
Yes, I know.
I don't think it needs to.
Yeah, I think
I'd-
that's,
But when we respond to them in writing,
Yes.
I presume, I think Marion made a good point. That needs to be written to them when they, on their
So that
submission.
was said in the debate.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, moved by Councillor Deaker. Have we a seconder?
are we going to put that,
Needs to,
It needs a seconder. Is there a seconder?
to add the words to it?
no,
No.
$40,000.
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
second that.
yeah.
Right.
40,000 to the.
Seconded, Councillor Forbes. Any further debate? I will move the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? The motion's carried. Right, G is the other one.
Madam Chair, I admire the idea. I think the amount of money is wildly excessive. It's pretty much like setting up a Nobel Prize for clean water. We could comfortably reduce that to $20,000 per financial year and still make significant awards to people doing good stuff. And I'd
Sorry,
like-
can I ask a question? Is that with, I thought that was the cost of having it existing, not the amount of money that would go to somebody under the award.
Mary,
Let's
so
go.
we
Yeah.
haven't done any work on this. We weren't aware it was a preference. So what we said is we have nothing in the existing budgets or resources to set this up. And if there is a desire to see us do a piece of scoping work that would then bring a report back to council about developing ORC environmental awards, and that might look like a cost, we will need some funding to meet that exercise. I don't think we need it in each financial year. We need it as a one-off amount to be able to complete that. In the absence of doing any work to understand what it would cost to bring someone in to do that, that's the number that's there. Maybe we don't need all of that, but again, we haven't had time to look.
So would you be more comfortable if it said scope of work to be undertaken
It wouldn't take us 2 years.
in year 2 with a budget of up to $50,000?
Well, we'd still budget 15
Yeah.
if you set up to.
With all due respect, you actually don't need this resolution to read anything other than to ask staff to provide a paper on the establishment of ORC environmental rules. Any funding then comes up in the annual plan next year.
How am I going to pay to do?
No, you ask, we need to have that discussion around our table. We've only just generically thought about the concept being a really good idea. But in terms of what it would look like, governance haven't had that discussion, and we need a motion, we need a policy, just a position. Have that discussion and then give you some steer. Then you can build any funding in for that into your next annual plan.
Could you use your words?
Well, no, I was
Use
just
your
saying,
words, councillor.
ask staff to provide request staff to provide a paper on establishing.
Or a paper to discuss establishing.
Or discuss establishing, yeah.
I would happily stick on that, Madam Chair, and suggest to the mover that it be re-established, because this council for a long time
Oh, that's it, right.
had a successful environmental
Okay.
award program.
Sure.
So the paperwork is there somewhere.
Right. To discuss the re-establishment of an ORC environmental, of ORC environmental awards.
The re-establishment.
And it should read the rather than and.
That's right. Dr. Palmer will recall that as clearly as I do. I don't know.
And the rest of that can go.
We're around it.
Sorry, for clarity, you'll see that for consideration as part of the annual plan. That'd be the
Well, the paper will come in the next 12 months. And then any funding for it would go into the next annual plan.
It should be N. Oh, okay, right.
Can we add a date in?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
makes it tidier.
By the end of the year?
Yeah.
Well,
31 December, I think. End of December. So we have a mover.
I'll second.
The two Michaels are moving and seconding it, are they?
I can squeeze.
All right. No further debate. I'll move this. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried.
Let's keep that up.
Can I ask a question? And that question is, are we going to release these publicly as well?
Is that public? This is a public meeting.
Yes. But are we going to do a press release, Sarah, that releases these additional ones? Because I'm sorry, if it just goes on YouTube, it's going to no one.
Yeah, we can. We're watching quite closely. Yeah.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Thank you.
If it's not going to be IFP.
Yes, I move that this meeting be closed.